Alrighty, guys, welcome back to Shakedown First Responder Podcast with your hosts.
I'm Mike.
And I'm Kirsten. We have two very special guests with us today. You might recognize the one. He's been on our episode, 3, 4? When was it?
5.
5?
Yeah.
Alright, he was on episode 5. This is Beaghan. We have another guest with us today. We also know him very well. He works with us. Paul. He's a content creator for NXP Play. Check out his channel on YouTube. You want to tell us a little bit about that?
Now?
Yeah.
Sure. So I play horror games and I tell horror stories. And my channel is around, well, it started off as a kids channel and then it changed to a reaction channel. Now it's a horror gaming channel. And I focus mainly on anything in the horror niche. So right now I'm primarily playing horror games, reviewing horror games, and I'm also doing horror stories. So that's what I'm doing with my channel. And again, that's NXP Play. Also have a vlog channel, NXP Fam Vlogs, and you can find that in the About section of my page.
He's got quite the following. So
It's
definitely
really
check
good.
him out.
It is,
Yeah.
Some of the ones I saw that were pretty scary.
I appreciate
Yeah,
that.
I
Thank
was
you.
like, oh, yeah, that's pretty sick. And some of the ones, like the ones you showed me.
The
when we were-
box.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, the box one. Did you do the box one?
Yeah, the
Oh, yeah,
ones
that's
with
right.
my son.
The one that we were talking about.
Yeah, the reaction. So yeah, I also do reactions too. So that's the one you told me about. Yeah, you told me about that. And yeah, that was pretty good. But yeah, check out the channel. Everything's on there, all things horror. And hope you guys enjoy it.
What does NXP stand for? He was asking.
So the NXP were the initials of my kids, right? Because it
Oh,
started
that's
as a
cool.
kids channel.
right.
And I never changed it. So NXP is the N is for my daughter, X is for my son. So it's Nona, Xander, and Phoenix.
That's cool.
That's
But that's their nicknames. That's not their full name.
Right.
It's just what we call them. So
That's cool. I
yeah.
like that. So we are currently working on coming up with a logo / emblem for our podcast to put out for apparel. We actually are meeting with
Legacy.
tomorrow.
Yeah, L2 Brands. We're going to meet with them tomorrow and talk to them. And I mean, they do hats, like Legacy hats. I got a ton of them.
They're super
You ordered
comfortable.
some?
I know I got like at least 2 of them in that little box right there. To
Yeah,
keep
they're
on the hats.
comfortable.
And I don't have a flyers on.
Surprising. Maybe
Which
they
is
can
weird.
hook us up tomorrow.
Yeah. Oh, I got you something. I'm gonna go get it. Keep talking.
So we're currently working on that. Hopefully we can get that out within the next year. But obviously it's the holiday season, so it's gonna be a little bit slower for us to get anything out because this month I'm very busy. I know we're both very busy next month, but we'll still try to at least get an episode out per month.
Ooh.
Ooh, nice.
I don't know if you wear hats or not.
I do wear hats. This is awesome. Thank you.
I got you one.
They went to the game.
Yeah.
I like it. It's awesome.
They were giving them away. It was I went to the Flyers
Oh,
and
like
San
the-
Jose game on the
It
11th.
kind of matches your sweater too.
We're gonna advertise for Flyers. We're hoping
Yeah.
one day they'll sponsor us.
Well, Toyota's on the back too, so maybe Toyota.
You want to
I-
sponsor us as well?
Yeah,
Anyways,
I went with her to that game, and it was Veterans Day kind of thing they were doing. And it was military appreciation. I didn't even know that's what it was until we got there, or the day before. And she's like, I think they're handing out like rally towels that are like camouflage. I'm like, oh, that's pretty cool. I got a couple of those. I'm gonna fucking add that to my collection. And I looked it up, and they're like, she was like, oh no, they're handing out hats. I was like, sweet. And she's like, I don't wear hats, so they obviously have mine.
well,
So
thank you.
Yeah,
And he was actually on a podcast at the Flyers game.
yeah,
Talk about that a little bit.
yeah. I talked to Russ Joy from Joy Media. He is one of the hosts of Snow the Goalie, the Snow the Goalie podcast, and the Press Row show. And he has the Russ Joy show. on YouTube, and but I've been listening to Snow the Goalie since they started it, and it's him, Anthony Sanfilippo, who's a sports writer out in Philadelphia, and Chris Terrian, who played defense for the Flyers for a long time, and he's also in recovery, and he wrote a book that I freaking loved. So last year when I went to the game, I wrote, that's how I kind of got introduced to them. I wrote Russ on Messenger, just kind of like, you know, shot in a million, whatever. I knew that they were going to be at the game because they had just started doing the press row show, doing the podcast at the game. So in between each period, they talk, you know, about, you know, what's going on. Bill Meltzer was on there. Your intern Andrew was on there. And so anyway, I met them last year. I got a shirt, I got it signed, and I brought my book. And he signed my book. It was really cool. But he does a lot of work with first responders and military, and I looked it up. I forgot the name of it, but it's he's got places like around the Philadelphia area. Sorry,
It's loud.
it's trash day. He's got places around Philadelphia and South Jersey that are all recovery places for. He's got one that's specifically for first responders and military, and he was telling me about that. I went, dude, that's awesome.
That is awesome.
Yeah, and he's a super cool dude. I remember meeting him last year and shaking his hand. I felt like a toddler because he's so freaking big.
It's quite the experience. Let's dive into this episode. So, I kind of caught the idea of this topic after a show on FX. I know you two have not seen the show. He has.
You didn't watch it?
I haven't had a chance to. I don't have FX.
So the show is called Grotesque.
Did you watch it?
No, I didn't get a chance.
You only watched like a
Sorry.
couple episodes.
Sorry,
of the
man.
show.
I saw the trailer though, and it looks great.
Yeah.
So, spoiler alert for the show. It portrays a detective following a series of unsolved murders with heinous crimes. A nun helps with her and leads her amongst the church. It is revealed that the detective was in a coma in the end of the show and essentially was her subconscious mind in the way she has dealt with the truths and trauma that she had lived. So it's super interesting. I highly recommend it. It's kind of like what did you say? Shutter Island. I think it was you and I talking about it. Somebody and I was talking about it.
It was a little bit like True Detective.
True Detective on
Did you ever watch that?
HBO.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
I was getting those kind of vibes.
It's definitely
First
very
15
grotesque.
minutes, fucking prepare yourself.
Yeah, it's very
That threw me
gory.
off.
But essentially, they're just trying to
Never gonna repent.
That's the name of the show, right? What's the
grotesquerie.
Grotesque? Yeah.
Interesting.
What does it mean? Is that what you're asking?
No. I'm saying you said grotesque. I thought that was the name of the show.
Yeah, grotesquerie.
Grotesque.
It
Yeah.
kind of is.
Yeah, kind of.
So it ties into this discussion topic. How does the subconscious mind portray / deal with trauma? According to American Police Beat, apbweb.com, trauma is any experience that has the potential to significantly affect an officer in a debilitating way over a long period of time. Police officers, dispatchers, and others of those have experiences nearly every day at work. An officer does not have to be involved in a shooting or anything horrific to suffer. The vast majority of officers and dispatchers suffering from debilitating traumas were just doing what they were asked to do every day. No officer is invincible from suffering from the repeated assaults upon their spirit from the trauma of police work, constant exposure to violence, suffering, danger, and victimization, suicide, senseless deaths, and unforgettable child molest and brutal sexual assaults, as well as being verbally and physically assaulted. These traumas devastate the police profession, with nearly 20% suffering from post-traumatic stress, 25 to 30% suffering from serious stress-based health crisis, and 20% suffering from addictions, twice as many officers becoming alcoholics as the general population, as well as higher rates of depression.
Oh yeah, definitely spot on.
Yeah, I agree.
And one thing I actually didn't think about nearly as much until you said it was dispatchers.
Oh yeah.
Like some of the, Jesus, some of the calls they gotta take.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And you can't do anything either.
No.
I mean, obviously you're dispatching the officers and giving information. You are an active participant in the call,
Mm-hmm.
but like,
You physically can't do anything.
right?
Yeah.
In the
You're,
moment.
you know what I mean?
You're hearing what's playing out, but you can't do anything about it.
it's like constantly watching like a thriller movie. You
Yes.
just can't, you're stuck. Can't deal with any of it. I mean, even like they said, you don't have to have like something extremely traumatic happen to you. The stuff that like you see and read and hear alone can affect you, especially like working in the field that we do.
Yeah, I mean, just hearing the stories of people, you know, especially when they come in first, like through central booking, you know what I mean? And it's right off the tail of getting arrested, you know, probably something bad happening at their home or wherever they were at, you know, a lot of the time involving friends or family members, if there's multiple like parties going on there. And, you
Yeah,
know,
when they first come in, it's like extreme heightened emotion,
yeah, you know what I mean? And
depending on what they're in for or what they just dealt with.
especially if like kids are involved and stuff, it's like, you know, you're not directly getting into any kind of threat or fight, but you're, you know,
Sorry.
Well, yeah, depending on what it is, like the dispatcher has to deal with all that internally, like mentally,
right, yeah,
and regardless of what they have done, they can hear somebody getting shot or assaulted over there, and they can't do anything about it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's gotta mess with them in some kind of way.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I kind of think of them like, oh, I was watching that. It's kind of corny, but that show SEAL Team, and one of the guys opens a vet center, and one of the vets that comes in, they play out this like kind of Chris Kyle story with one of the team guys from SEAL Team. He winds up losing his leg, and he goes to this vet center, meets this guy, and the guy winds up getting him killed. The guy doesn't kill him, but it's it's very similar to the Chris Kyle thing.
right,
I think that's what they were trying to go for. But the guy who was having all these issues was Air Force. And of course you think Air Force, man, you guys shit, what the fuck are you talking about, bitch? You didn't do nothing. But he was a drone pilot. And then you gotta think like, Jesus, those guys gotta be really messed up. I mean, I've had to do terrible things that I gotta live with, but I mean, if you drop a bomb on the wrong place,
You have to deal
you're
with
not
the
playing a
consequence.
fucking video game.
yeah.
I mean, that's real life shit.
I mean, I think that's like exacerbated nowadays because we have, I mean, drones are pretty much everywhere.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, you see footage, you know, in all of these new wars that are happening in the modern days of drones being used, just like any drone you could pick up from a hardware store, you know, you just slap ammunition on it and, you know, send it wherever it needs to go. But that gives it access to a lot more people. So, I mean, it doesn't risk you as the person, but you still have to actually do the act of sending it out there and doing those things. So, I mean, even if, not to get political, if you believe it's the right cause for whatever you're doing, that's still gonna, I mean,
Affect you.
it's gonna mess you up, you know what I mean?
It's not, whatever it is.
Right.
Yeah.
So in the show, it like portrays this detective who has to deal with these heinous crimes and experience like nonetheless unexplainable, I guess, criminal acts, to say the least. It's very gory, but overall, it's portrayed that throughout the show, she has this nun that's helping her, and she ends up waking up out of this coma. When she wakes up, it was just her mind's way of reacting to all the trauma that she had experienced. That she was dreaming all of these things because it was how it was like working her through her traumas.
Mm.
Do you think that like our dreams have an effect on our mental health? Or it's a way of like our mental state trying to cope with the things that we see and deal with?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I've had nightmares about stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really know how necessarily deep it goes. I don't really like memorize my dreams very often, but when I do, they typically aren't really anything more than just about things that I've been thinking about recently. You know what I mean? So I don't know if it's necessarily like some kind of hidden like consciousness thing, you know, trying to work its way or send a message or something, but more of just you know, you trying to figure things out that you still probably haven't figured out yet in your own head. So
Do you ever have a dream that like you feel like happened to you in like some sort of way, but it's like not your reality, but it feels like it was your reality?
well, you can probably have dreams of like memories, you know what I mean, that you've had that are skewed in your own mind. But I think a lot of people can kind of be deceived by them because I guess your brain can kind of mix some things around. So like I've heard that, I don't know this for certain, but I've heard that like people in your dreams, like faces, like your mind can't necessarily just make up a person's face. So if you see a person in your dreams, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's that person that your brain is trying to like communicate.
Yeah, it's probably somebody you might have passed in the mall.
Yeah, I
when
mean,
you were like
you know what I
12.
mean? But if you're like, oh, you know, in my dream, you know, this random classmate was talking to me in this thing, it's like that might not be very significant. It might just be.
These all dump trucks.
Yeah. We're doing construction down the road. We need sponsors.
Yeah.
Guys, please.
So the way I look at dreams are like, my wife and I debate about this all the time. Like, this is how I view them. They are random, and they can happen at random, or through life experiences. All right. So I take my daughter for instance. She's 6. Like, she doesn't like playing a video. Like, she doesn't like watching some of the games that I play. I don't let her watch the games I play. But every now and then she'll come in the room while I'm playing a game, and she'll catch a jump scare or a monster on the screen, and that will give her a nightmare. That's her experience. For me, everything is random, right? So it's random to an extent. So I say that, like I have dreams about my father. My father passed away, right? And when he passed away, I'd have dreams about him. But I didn't go to bed with the mindset of dreaming about my dad, you know, and I had him more frequently when around the time he passed. So I think about that. But outside of that, every dream I've had, they're all random and they're all short. You know, there's like 1 or 2 events that would happen in a dream, and then I'll forget about it or I'll wake up. You know, so they're not long. So that's my wife. On the other hand, she feels that all the dreams. I don't know if she's probably gonna watch this, but all her dreams, she has full control over them.
Oh, like lucid dreams.
Like lucid dreams, right? She can like change the events of what happens in her dreams.
Really?
And I'm like, how do you do that? You know,
Yeah, like,
I've never heard of
ever
anything like that before. So she's on that spectrum, and I'm like, I don't necessarily agree with that because I've never, maybe that's the wrong word, but I've never had that experience where I'm dreaming about something and can change it.
Yeah,
while I'm
I've heard of that.
Yeah, I've never heard of anything like that until I met her. So I don't know if that's real or not. That's just something I've never.
I've never had a dream where I can control it, like what's going on in the dream. I mean, you can like wake yourself up.
Yeah.
But, like, never just control what happens next in the dream.
It's
It
like
just kind of happens.
I never heard of that until now.
Yeah. I'm kind of interested in, I guess, sort of the purpose. I mean, I think a lot of people want to ascribe purpose to it because obviously it's something that we all do. Like there has to be a reason, you know what I mean? But it's kind of interesting that like other animals, it's not just humans dream. I mean, you have dogs that'll lay there and like kick their feet around and stuff. You know what I mean? I don't know about other, I guess like cats and stuff. I wonder. I'd be interested to see like if there is a specific type of animals that can dream and ones that don't, you know what I mean, and what kind of cognitive functions come with that. But, you know, I mean, there must be some kind of reason that our caveman brains, like, came up with a way to do that, you know, with other mammals too, as some sort of...
Like, I think, I think some dreams are just, like, obviously random, and, like, they just make absolutely no sense. But I know from, like, myself and my own experiences, when I've experienced, like, when I was assaulted, I went through like a time where it was just like constant, I don't necessarily nightmares, but I would like wake up screaming and sleepwalking and that type of thing. And I know for like an officer that was involved in a shooting or like military vets and stuff like that, they also experienced the same thing. So it's like interesting because it's like your brain's way of almost coping with it while you're not conscious.
Almost like a, like, I don't know, like an exposure therapy thing. Is that what you're kind of going for? Like when your body is kind of like shut down, obviously it feels safe, you know, because you're sleeping and everything. It'll in its own way expose itself to that trauma to try to deal with it, work through it. Maybe, I mean, I don't know if it's that deep, but that'd be interesting. Like maybe people almost having like flashbacks and things isn't necessarily isn't necessarily like victimizing them in their minds. It's their minds actually trying to overcome it. I mean, that's just pure speculation. I have no idea, but
I know that, so according to www.sleepfoundation.org, Sigmund Freud, the founder of psychoanalysis, offered an early perspective suggesting that dreams allow a view into the unconscious. He proposed that dreams protected sleep by containing the anxiety associated with repressed desires.
yeah.
What?
I mean, Sigmund Freud was a fucking weirdo, but
He was.
But he was maybe onto something.
a lot of cocaine. But yeah,
Repressed desires.
Yes. Oh yeah.
Really?
Yes, yeah. But I mean, you know, he's basically considered the father of, you know, the subconscious and stuff like that. So, I mean, he had some good ideas. Inner desires. I mean, yeah, maybe that's another one of those things where it's like, oh, I've been thinking about this for a while. It's your brain's way of trying to, you know, overcome or figure out like what you're actually thinking about.
Like it's like our safe space where like the brain shifts, allowing us to deal with like the things that we suppress.
Yeah, I mean, I think knowing Sigmund Freud, he's probably taking this to some kind of like sexual way between.
Obviously, yeah.
Repressed memories, like
It's
you obviously want to sleep with your mother. Right?
He
doesn't, right?
Not at all.
He doesn't.
like parental stuff going on with him. I don't even know, but
That dude's crazy.
But yeah, I mean, I think he's kind of on the right track with that potentially. I mean, at least with my experience and with dreams, and it would be interesting to talk to people who just don't remember any of their dreams at all. Like, I mean, as long as you're like going into REM sleep, I'm pretty sure like everybody dreams. It's just a matter of if you remember them when you wake up or not. So, I don't know, maybe people just can't.
I wonder sometime, like with the, sorry to cut you off,
No, you're
the first responders and like the road deputies, for instance, and they're involved in a shooting. Like, how does that affect them? You know, how does it affect their dreams and their day living? Because it changes, and I don't know what the time frame is with a shooting, like a police involved shooting, to when they're back on the road, because I know they have to take some time off. Are you familiar with that?
With how long they have to
Take off, yeah. Even if it's something minor, like they still have to take some time off. They have to see a therapist, I think. And
Yeah, I think that's
Yeah.
Depends on where you're at.
yeah,
It's probably like never enough time to even
I think
like,
for
work through
our
it.
department, I'm pretty sure it's mandatory
yeah,
before you get your gun back,
yeah,
all that stuff. Because you're involved in a shooting, they have to take your weapon.
yeah.
Because now that's evidence.
Mm-hmm.
Until they're completely done with the whole investigation, then I guess you get your gun back. But
Yeah. I'm interested in kind of the aspect of the nun in that show. Just to circle back to that, it kind of reminds me of to do another pop culture reference, the movie Hereditary,
I've not seen
where
it.
that movie's good.
so good.
Essentially, this mother, her grandmother, no, her mother recently passes away. The grandmother of the children in the movie, and so she's kind of dealing with that in her life. She was very close to her own mom, and she has a lot of these like family struggles with her husband and her two children. I'm not going to necessarily spoil it because it's a very, very good movie, but really bad things happen, and she turns to sort of religion, cult, I guess occult practices to try to like speak to her mom and her loved ones and everything, and like turn to that sort of religious aspect. So I guess it'd be interesting to get your guys' take on, and maybe this is controversial, whatever, I don't really care, on like religion as it involves trauma, like people coping through things. You know what I mean? Do you think people, I guess it's a chicken or the egg, seek religion to cope, or religion is legitimately there and can help people?
I think
Cool.
like in the show, like it portrays, so the person that she sees in the nun in her coma state
Mhm.
is actually the chief of police when she's like actually not in a coma, and she reflects that as like it's almost like her saving
authority
grace,
figure.
but like it's so confusing because the show is very, very weird. Like the nun isn't like what you would think a nun is like, if that makes sense.
So the nun is the police chief in her dream.
So
No.
like when she's in a coma, she is seeing like all these people that are in her life, but as in different.
It's the
like,
same thing we kind of talked
characters.
about, where her brain is taking the people that she knows and just
Personally.
using
Using them
their
in the dream.
faces to
Oh,
like,
okay.
Yeah, the nun's a writer for like our daily bread or some shit like
Right.
that. but it was actually a pretty cool concept. They were trying to get more people back involved with the church, the Catholic Church, and by trying to get more women who are into those like crime dramas, or there's like God, my girlfriend's into them. It was like horrible docu series about serial killers and shit
like
like
the
that.
forensic stuff.
So
Yes.
so what? How did the dreams help her solve these cases?
So the show overall, like I
She
looked
doesn't know
up,
she's dreaming.
she
She doesn't
doesn't know that
know.
she's
No.
dreaming, and they're
She's in
trying
a
to
coma.
explore like multiple different themes between men and women rights, AI, climate change, societal collapse, faith and fear. It
Okay.
tie all of this together into the show. It's kind of like trying to bring light to society of like things that are going on now.
Yeah.
Like it makes you really think in general, like just like he's saying. But like with religion, I think sometimes it's just a safe space for everybody.
Mhm.
Like, I don't necessarily know, like, I was raised in a religious household, so I can't speak for somebody who is not. But I know for myself, like, whenever I've went through, like, some serious things, it's always like, there for me. Like, it's always the thing that wakes me up if I'm, like, having really bad nightmares or even just in, like, life itself.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if it's necessarily like tied in the same way, but you never know.
When I came back from my first tour, I was messed up, like really fucked up. And I remember going to New Jersey and I was talking to my dad, and I turned 21 and overseas, which is the best way to celebrate your 21st birthday. It sucked. And anyway, I was at my dad's house, I was drinking, and I was kind of telling him, you know, what was going on with me. And he was like, you need to see a priest, because my father's Catholic. And I'm like, I believe in God because during that deployment, I witnessed a miracle, 100% flat out miracle. It's a really long story. But I was like, yeah, I don't think so. No, I'm not gonna, he really wanted, he kept trying to tell me, I really think you should talk to this guy. And I'm like, no, I waited and I talked to the VA. First time I went to the VA, they told me to smoke and they're like, are you drinking? And I'm like, no, not that much. Total bullshit. I was drinking every day. And they're like, oh, do you smoke? I was like, yeah. And I'm like, okay, well, just, drink and smoke and trust me. Like,
What?
You'll
What
get
kind
over
of
it.
advice is that?
It was a major who was a psychiatrist in the Army. And he was like,
Awesome.
trust me, you'll be fine. You'll get over this.
Drink and smoke, you'll be alright.
Yeah.
We do not condone.
No, I definitely don't condone doing any of those things.
Approved by the United States government.
Yeah.
But I know for me, that didn't work.
No,
I always-
imagine why.
But I always knew that there was a God. There was something. I didn't know if it was Jesus or Allah or whatever the fuck Hindus believe in or sheiks or whatever. I didn't know. But I knew that there was something. Because the thing I saw was every single one of us that came out of this were like, that was a miracle if I've ever seen one.
What was it?
So,
As best you can sum it up.
it's a long story. I'll try to sum it up. So, we did something called SNAP TCP, which is a traffic control point. This was during, I think it was just after the elections in 2006, I think. And our platoon sergeant wasn't the smartest guy in the world. And what he did was, and a couple of people told him, this probably isn't the best place to set up a traffic control point because there was a curfew. There's nobody supposed to be out beyond 8 or 9 o'clock. There wasn't supposed to be any cars on the road. If any cars were on the road, we were going to get you. So we threw out these traffic cones, some what you call them? Glow sticks.
Glow sticks.
Oh.
What is this?
Break them, shake them, throw them. We threw a bunch of those out, and we set up like a little sign that said, slow down. Another one said, slow the fuck down, you're getting a little closer. You're about to be coming to a stop. If you don't stop, we're gonna kill you. And like an idiot, he sets this thing up around a corner. So we're on one side, the people coming are on the other side. And they're hauling ass because
No signs on that side?
there was cones and there was probably a few glow sticks. I keep calling them glow sticks. What else are they called?
Like
Flares?
Not
Fire
flares.
stairs?
No, it definitely wasn't flares. We didn't use those.
What else besides those?
I have no idea.
I'm pretty sure glow sticks is
Yeah.
Just
what it is. Yeah, I think so. Could you see past that point, or?
We could see a little bit down the road. So,
Yeah.
a buddy of mine was on our 113, which like a little tank, and we only used it for Kazivac because it was the only track vehicle we had, and it had a 50 cal on it. So, if there's any trouble, if one of our guys went down, 113 would jump in,
Right.
take that person, and get them the fuck out. So the guy was on top on the 50 cal. There was, I think it was our whole platoon. So it was probably about 25, 30 guys. All fucking killers. Good shots. This car starts coming around the corner. Doesn't stop, doesn't slow down. And it keeps coming. So whoever was closest to the vehicle where they were supposed to stop, and they were gonna talk to them and tell them, ask them why the fuck they're out, search their car. He takes a couple shots in the air as warning shots. And then you could kind of hear brakes squeal, but not really. Like, it sounded like after the fact, thinking about it, that they tried hitting the brakes and the brakes shut off. So we're like, shit, this thing's coming. And we're like, oh my God, they know we're here. It's a VBID, vehicle borne IED. And we're like, fuck, this thing's coming fast. So everybody, I was a saw gunner. I laid 200 rounds. I started in the front of the car, in the engine block, to try to shut the car down. And then once it kept getting closer, then I'm like, okay, driver, passenger, driver, passenger, driver, passenger. And I shut that little ammo bag on my saw. I emptied everything I had. Everybody that was around me was peppering this thing. The 50 cal was boop, 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 hitting the car. And then as the car came up to the 113, he was even on top. Like he leaned the thing forward and it was shooting on top of it. And if you ever, the best movie I can think of that represents what a 50 caliber machine gun can do is that one Rambo movie where he's
Oh yeah.
old. And I'm telling you, if one of those rounds flies within even a couple inches of your face or your head, it's breaking your neck. You're gonna die. This car, I think, started out blue. By the time it came to us, you could not tell what color this thing was at all. It was just fucking riddled with holes. And so we all took cover. We're like waiting for it to go off. Like, well, everybody's inside's dead, so waiting, nothing. And we're like, okay, well, let's try to move the 113 out of the way. We'll back the vehicles up, and then we'll call EOD, have them come out and just blow the vehicle. Instead, we hear a door open. And we're like, gosh, is it a person, or did the door just fall off?
Mm-hmm.
And we're gonna look over, it's this guy with his hands up. He's like, oh, no. And we're like, get off the fucking ground, get off the fucking ground. How the fuck is this guy alive? And then we hear a baby crying.
Oh.
And that right there, that fucked me up. I'm like, oh my God, I killed a fucking baby. And then it started coming to me, the baby's crying. There's no way it can't be dead because it's crying. We laid so many rounds into this thing. And then another guy gets out of the front, and then the lady gets out the back, another lady gets out the back. A little boy gets out the back,
What
and a little girl gets out the back.
How are they in the car?
Another lady holding the baby gets out of the car. And we're like, holy shit. And after that, I mean, we took pictures of the car.
Did they even get hit?
No, not one.
That is a
Not
miracle.
one person.
That, yeah.
And I know I emptied my entire bag of rounds. And it was 200 rounds. And because right after I did it, I flung it off and I threw another one on. Everybody else went completely black. Took their mags out, put new ones in. And 50 cal, I think, pretty sure he ran out of rounds because he was the first one to start shooting. And he said the same thing. I started with the engine block, and then I was like, you know what? This thing's not stopping. I'm just going to try and kill the driver. And do the same thing as me. But yeah, you couldn't tell what color this car was. You couldn't tell what kind of car. You couldn't even tell if it was a car. It was just a block of metal with holes in it. And yeah, I think there were 7 people that got out. And what they told our interpreter was they were at a wedding, and they were trying to come back before the curfew. That's why the guy was speeding. And the car was kind of a piece of shit to begin with. And he said when he originally saw the sign, he tried to slow down and then couldn't. So I mean, all of us got together after that, and we were like, there's something.
There has to.
There has to be something. I don't know if it's
Terrible story.
Allah, God, whatever. At that point, I'm like, I have no idea. I know there's something because there's absolutely no way. I mean, we had done things like that before, and you know, everybody had died, but never like that.
Yeah.
So
That is.
that's my miracle story.
That's crazy.
I got a lot of other ones that are really terrible, but that's the good one I take away from that deployment. And
Where was that?
that was it was in Baghdad.
Baghdad.
I'm trying to think. I want to say north side. We were outside of Solder City that first time. So it was on some back road
Okay.
back there.
Have you ever had like God or your interpretation of him visit you like in a dream?
I had one of the things we do in AA is try to meditate. I didn't know what meditating was, and I'm reading about it, and all these guys are talking about meditating. And I talked to my sponsor at the time, and he's like, "Man, you could sit on your back porch, or sit on your front porch, or sit in your room, but it needs to be quiet." I have 4 kids. There's no such thing as quiet. I can't meditate. So I'm like, I drove around. There was a day I didn't really have much going on. I drove around to a bunch of different churches, and they were all closed. Every time I went up, I thought churches always had like an open door thing, where you can just go in there.
Oh,
I think
Yeah.
back in the day.
Yeah.
Like, I don't
Well,
think
there
anymore.
was one. It was a Catholic church up in Pennsylvania, and I go in there, and I've had this ringing in my left ear for years, and it doesn't go away. It's annoying, but I'm used to it now. I go in this church, and I hadn't been in a Catholic church since probably my cousin's wedding. And I was like 12 or 13 years old. And so I go in and I just kind of sit there, and I'm in the pew, there's absolutely nobody there. And for the first time ever, that noise in my ear completely stopped. And it was only for about 20 minutes. And I'm like, that's so weird. I don't understand why. But yeah, I sat and I prayed and I did my meditation thing. And since then I've done, you know, I kind of wake up in the morning, do my third step prayer, and then before I go to bed, you know, I always pray. You know, thank God for my day, and you know, nothing terrible happened, and all that. But that's how religious experiences kind of helped me, and through recovery, I think, because one of the things that said on here was, obviously, motherfuckers turned into drinking alcohol. That was my drug. And even in the show, I mean, she was drinking
Non-stop.
non-stop
Just vodka.
at work. See, I didn't do that.
Oh.
I didn't. I would be like, the second I'm out of here, I'm going to the liquor store and I'm getting something. I never drove drunk. I never drove with my kids drunk. I never did that. But yeah, I was not good. And yeah, but at work, she's got a flask. But she's around everybody, and she's just like, there's no shame.
Pouring it into like coffee.
Yes.
Just drinking it.
Yeah, and there's like people around her. They're not like,
But I think that's like why the show's so good though, because it brings truth to like reality. I mean, that is some people's reality. It is their way of dealing with trauma.
Yeah, but if you were at work and let's say Mr. Mario over here starts pouring himself a little whiskey in his
Whoa.
and we're like, hey man,
I'd be like, just
what are you
come
doing?
in here for me.
Yeah.
Hold on, how much you got?
Probably not the greatest idea.
I'm interested. I don't know if like Catholicism is like really your thing. I know like the Catholic Church was where you sort of found that. I don't know if you've heard or have done like adoration at all. That's like it's like a 24-hour chapel thing. You can go in there anytime. So I mean, I don't know if you know there were churches that are locked or something. If you find they're called adoration chapels, they're just pews. It's a small. Typically, they're like small rooms. So that theoretically are open 24/7 because they have the Eucharist in there, and people kind of sign up to go and sit.
Yeah, it's usually like right when you walk in.
Yeah.
Usually by the front. But
It-
not the main part usually isn't.
It depends on the like church you're at. Sometimes it's a separate building if they have a little bit more money, but yeah. So you know, if you ever need a place and certain churches are closed, I guess look for one of those. Those will always be open. But I didn't know if that was something that you knew at the time or not. Or
No, I didn't. No idea.
did at all.
I've been back to church. I've been trying to go. Honestly, I've been trying to kind of find one here.
Yeah.
There's a couple that I went to I didn't like. I don't know if anybody's into speaking tongues. That shit threw me off.
Wait a minute, what?
Really?
Yeah.
What?
What do you?
What?
I went to this church and I'm like, man, you know what? There's a couple people I know from the program that were there, and so I'm like, oh, well, cool.
Sure, it just wasn't a Latin mass, like.
No. This wasn't a Catholic church.
Right.
This was not a Catholic church. And
Well, they don't do Latin masses anymore, but typically.
no, man, it threw me off. I mean, speaking in tongues, like
Scared you?
a little bit.
Yeah.
Like what?
Like like that. But it's literally it's in the Bible, because I talked to the preacher afterwards.
Was
and I
this a
said,
Catholic church?
No. No, I honestly I don't know what they were. It was a church that I went to. I wanted to bring my kids in a church. I wanted to try and find something. And I go to this place. I went there for probably about a month, and yeah, they started speaking in tongues. Yes. And I'm like, and it threw me off big time. And I'm like, I don't know if I'm alright with this.
Yeah.
So I went and I talked to the preacher, and he's giving me all these places in the Bible that talk about speaking in tongues. I called my sister, who's a very religious person, and she said, yeah, it's definitely in the Bible. It's something that not everybody can do, but it's something that some faiths choose to do, I guess. And I'm like, I just don't see it.
Yeah.
It's
Interesting.
I tried to wrap my head around it. I couldn't do it, and yeah, I couldn't do it. The speaking in tongues shit, that wasn't.
I want to circle
There's no
back
way.
to is she a detective in the show?
Yeah, so she's
So
a
she's
detective.
a detective.
She originally
And
was the chief of police.
all right, so I don't really care too much about the spoilers. Do you care about the spoilers at all?
That's
Um,
it helps the
What does that like with her drinking? Was she a functioning alcoholic?
Mhm.
Was she
Highly
just
functioning.
hammered?
No,
Well, she
highly
was-
functioning.
okay.
That's how she functioned,
All
literally.
right, and did she solve any of these cases?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
She did,
apparently-
okay.
Yeah, apparently they were like, oh, I mean, she's like the head detective, like everybody's. Was it Niecy Nash who plays her? Yes.
They try to bring light to like so many different problems in the world right now. Like one of the episodes specifically, it's like spoiler alert, and also don't get offended in any of the things that we talk about. But she walks into some warehouse where there's multiple women. Did you watch that far?
Where?
So there's multiple women hooked
sounds
up
like a pretty
to
memorable.
Oh yeah.
a
already.
machine.
Yes. Yes.
They were all hooked up to a machine for milk. And
Milk.
their portrayal is they're trying to portray how like women have no rights anymore, like that kind of thing. There's also one where it's like the Last Supper, and there's like
That was nuts.
a bunch of homeless people, addicts. I forget who the main person is that's like in it, but they're literally like all sitting like the Last Supper, but there's like rod iron like poles just through all of them, connecting them.
Yeah, it's around this guy's head. He's got these giant metal poles that are going through other people. Just
And like I guess they're just trying to. It's how you take things from. Like, it's how you want to reflect it for yourself, honestly. But, like, I do believe they're trying to bring light to, like, societal issues. And, like I said, fear and faith, different beliefs.
Yeah.
yeah, at the beginning when she,
Sound like some soft shit.
It's not at all, because it shows the reactions to the entire department and how, like, they respond
yeah.
to it. And it's just, I don't know. It's a very interesting show.
in the very beginning, it was this. She goes up to this crime scene, not expecting it to be anything insane, but it was. And there's cops coming out and they're yakking all over the bushes.
Yeah, I saw that in the trailer.
Oh my god.
But like some of that's reality for some people. Like, as all of us know, like there's a lot of things that people don't know that goes on.
Yeah, and she was like talking about the boiling pot with a nun, and she's like, well, what was in it? And she goes, imagine the most messed up thing you could possibly think of. That's what it was.
Yeah.
And they're like,
It's
Pretty wild.
it is wild. I think they might try to do a little too much in like bringing attention to multiple different things, but at the same time, it's really interesting.
Well, I mean, the context is that it's all in her perspective and her mind, right?
Mhm.
So, I mean, it might be less important the message it's trying to put out to the audience and more about the character, what she's thinking or going through. You know what I mean? Trying to work through.
Originally, it wasn't her in the coma; it was her husband.
Like
And
the whole, like most of the series, like shows and portrays him in a coma.
Yeah.
But it's really her that's been in the coma the whole time.
Was he a detective as well?
No, he was a
the professor.
right, yeah, professor.
And the one part where the nurse is in there, fucking beating him off. And she walks in on him. She walks in on him. He's in a coma, so she's giving him a little sponge bath and a tug. And,
As
like you do.
As you do.
Yeah.
Like normal,
Yeah.
And she walks in
Good.
and sees it, and she's like, what the fuck? What are you doing? And he just kind of gives her the business, and then it kind of just ends there. And I'm like, no fucking way. As if it was my girl in a coma and somebody was doing something like that,
But in that, like,
person
so the
wouldn't have a
reflection,
hand
it
anymore.
was her. Like, she was obviously in the coma. She had this thing with that nurse the entire time that, like, that nurse was always like on her ass about things.
Mhm.
Like favored her husband, whatever else. Well, that's because when she woke up, that's who her husband was having an affair with.
Oh.
So Red, I think is the character's name. Like her husband was having an affair with this woman the entire time, but
And
in
she
her
knew- but she knew
dream,
that.
yeah, but in her coma state, it was his caretaker.
Yeah, I mean, I that feels like less of a like kind of a realistic portrayal of sort of dreams in the subconscious and more like an artistic thing that the show's going for.
And I'm like, this can't be real because there's no way she would let that slide.
Well, that's because it wasn't real.
Yeah.
Because it was her coma. It was like her coma state.
Well, I didn't find that out until you told me.
Yeah, it's,
So I
I
read
think they're
this,
trying to go
so
through
that-
multiple things,
Yeah,
but
I'm still gonna finish it. I got
it is
like
very good.
the last episode.
it does bring up, interesting questions about all that.
I mean, I think it definitely makes you think. It makes you think on topics that typically people don't want to talk about.
I mean, I guess in terms of like the drinking and the we went into the dreams and religion. I guess, what do you guys think is emblematic of healthy ways to deal with things? And it really doesn't even have to be like overt drama. I mean, it's kind of come up as a topic before, but you have things just like having things drain on you over a long time. You get like that burnout. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Which I think probably is very similar, just in different contexts. But I guess, what do you guys think about the difference between healthy ways of dealing with that and unhealthy ways?
Obviously, like dealing with it unhealthy, it just buries the trauma. And then you're just experiencing more trauma and you're never actually coming to a resolution of what the actual problem is. So you're just constantly in a depressive state or in a negative state. I know for like how I deal with like stress and trauma, everyone to each their own, it's different, but I typically like to go for hikes that are like just by myself, with my animals, whatever. I don't know what it is about it, but it's just the silence that I think really helps me like get through stuff. And I know that it's like scientifically proven to release like serotonin and all the other things for your brain that helps you like, I guess, bring yourself back to like a healthier state.
I definitely do like the, or I guess subscribe to the eat right and like workout kind of method. Like if you're exercising and not eating like shit all day, then I think you'll feel happier. But it is kind of hard to do that, especially depending on the kind of job you have, especially if you're doing like shift work and stuff, and a lot of your time is spent doing like recovery. Like who's gonna come home from working 12 hours, maybe even an extended shift, and be like, I'm gonna hit the gym. Yeah, I mean there are like fucking studs who probably do that, but like most people are gonna come home and just crash immediately, and that's not a bad thing. I mean, you need time to recover that as well.
You have to
But-
honestly, it's overall, you just have to put yourself first.
Mhm.
Like, you have to take time off of work, make time for just you. If you don't put yourself first, you can't do anything else.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard to do. I mean, I know, you know. Families, it's hard, especially when
It
you
is
have
hard.
kids.
Yeah,
I think
It's-
you just have to find that
that balance.
medium of it, the
Yeah.
balance of it. I mean, you
Mhm.
can't always have you time, and you can't always have time
Yeah, of
off
course.
work and stuff like that. But I do think it's important to schedule those type of things.
I mean,
That way
it
you
probably
have
is, at the end of the day, you know, as boring as it is about like the it depends kind of thing. I mean, I'm sure it's perfectly healthy to like play video games or, or to work out and stuff to sort of relieve that stress, but anything in overabundance is obviously could be a bad thing.
Mhm.
But I mean,
Too much of anything is bad.
right.
Can be a
I
bad
guess in
thing.
terms of like more nuanced questions, like, do you guys feel that those kinds of dreams, I guess to go back to that whole trauma thing of what I was kind of unsure about earlier, do you think that reliving those events in your mind, in dreams or whatever, is that healthy? In the moment, it's like bringing things back. It can be traumatic and like almost bring those feelings, those negative feelings back, and cause stress and anxiety in the moment. But do you think that's good as an exposure therapy to help get over it? Or do you think it's ultimately destructive, and people who do, like I said earlier, have those dreams or flashbacks, do you think that's signs of them not being able to cope with it?
I know for soldiers, what the VA was doing, they were experimenting with all kinds of stuff. I mean, which is great. I mean, if it works, it works.
Yeah.
Some guys were getting, they do the Beaghan treatment, but it's illegal here. So they go down to Mexico and do it.
What's I'm not familiar with.
It's a type of psychedelic.
Oh, interesting.
And it's supposed to kind of open you up to open your mind, whatever. I don't know, I haven't done it. But I do have a friend of mine that did, and he was also a very heavy drinker, and he completely stopped. And the weight that he was carrying from all the bullshit that we had to do overseas kind of, completely lifted off. That's what he told me. So, and I've heard about it on what Sean Ryan was talking about on his podcast.
Yeah, I think Joe Rogan talks about psychedelics too.
Yeah.
Like,
But this one,
I'm a little iffy, but
I'm not really 100% sure. Honestly, I'm not an expert in it, but
Right.
I have heard that there's a lot of good things about it. And also, what the VA was doing was setting up video games to simulate some of the battles that happen to
yeah,
individual guys.
Call of
You-
Duty and stuff.
You could
Yeah.
you could play the game, and instead of your boy getting killed and you having to put somebody down, it went a different way, or it went the same way, but you realize you're not in control. You honestly, you had no choice. So I know that was helping. Hypnotherapy, which I tried. So they told me to write down the worst thing I've ever had to do. The worst thing. And I was like, you want me to write this down? And I'm like, who's gonna see this? I was super scared. I'm like, this cannot go anywhere. This guy's like, trust me, I'm gonna put it in the safe, write it down. So obviously the worst thing I didn't do, I did not tell him. I wrote something else. So anyway, I write it down, and he does this kind of hypnosis thing, which honestly didn't really work for me. But he was going through and kind of picking it apart and saying, well, what are you doing now? What could you do different at this point? What could you have done differently here? And it all kind of led back to the same road. It was I didn't have a choice. You know, and orders are orders. I did what I did. And it's over. And I can still think about it, and I can still be a productive member of society. And, you know, it doesn't have to fuck me up.
Mm-hmm.
But that, honestly, that type of therapy didn't really help for me. Honestly, just going to meetings, and you know, I'll talk about some stuff that happened with buddies that are, you know, infantrymen. I got a Marine buddy that I talk to every once in a while about this kind of stuff. A couple guys in my old unit, and I still keep in contact with. And you know, we talk, and honestly, that's beneficial. Is just talking about it and getting it off your chest.
Absolutely. I think the only way to deal with trauma is to work through it, no matter how hard it is. And it's just like any emotion. I mean, you don't always cry, but sometimes you're gonna cry. So sometimes it's gonna be like a productive, positive thing, and sometimes it's just gonna be a very negative experience. I think sometimes your brain just likes to play those little tricks on you in your sleep, whether it's like showing you that, hey, I am getting through this, or I have some work to do.
I think talking about it is like the first step.
Mm-hmm.
You know, just getting it off your chest.
Yeah.
I heard something. Hold on. Did something happen to you when you were at work?
When?
You weren't feeling
Oh
too
yeah,
good?
I had my blood pressure was high, and I was nearly rushed to the hospital one night.
Did they? Are you?
I went to the urgent care right after, and I felt fine, but my pressure, which I've honestly overlooked for years, has gotten to the point now where it's like stroke level concern high.
Mm-hmm.
And I was at that point, and they held me in the
Walk-in?
for almost 4 hours. They monitored me, make sure I was down
Just
before.
until it came down.
And then they prescribed me some new meds, which I'm on now. But yeah, but I felt fine.
Somebody had told me that. I figured I'd bring it up, but if
Yeah.
I would just kind of run it past you. Obviously, if you didn't want to talk about it,
No, it's fine.
you would have totally cut that shit out.
Yeah, it's fine. I'm not worried about that. In fact, let this be a lesson for everyone. Because, it's a silent killer.
Yes.
Yeah, and
That's
you
why.
really gotta watch it.
That's why I wanted to bring it up. Is
Mhm.
because if you're, in the future, if you're ever fucking feeling like that,
Yeah.
I heard you stayed, and I was like,
I did well. I found out towards the end of the shift.
fuck, did he stay?
Yes, I found out it was like 5 o'clock in the morning. It was right before feed up,
Okay.
and I was like, I might as well just finish the shift. But I didn't feel that bad. And then the nurse gave me some aspirin, so that kind of brought it down a little bit. And then I wasn't moving around as much, because that's another thing that was sending me through the roof. That particular night, my supervisor wanted me to. I don't know if you're not there anymore, but they're doing push-ups and
Oh my gosh.
was it squats?
Yeah.
Yeah, you were in on
It
that.
was the lunges.
The lunges, yes. And after that, I did like 2, because we were doing them every hour.
Yeah.
In the second hour, I did just fine. The third hour, I was like, okay, what the fuck is going on? Like my
It's your-
entire left arm.
It's
went
your
numb.
body's way of telling you to slow down.
Slow down,
like,
yeah.
Stop.
And that's what spiraled everything to me ended up in the.
Well, yeah. I mean, you should have fucking told us, dude.
Yeah,
I didn't
We
know.
were all like,
I didn't know.
we were all like, hey man, you doing alright? You're like, yeah, I feel fine. It's like,
Like-
okay.
You're about to have a stroke. Like my eyes about to start fluttering.
Yeah, that place, it's not worth you
Yeah.
dying there.
No,
Trust me, I
no
know.
job is ever worth dying
No.
for, ever.
Yeah. So I've learned my lesson, and I'm more consistent with my meds. And now even the nurses, they checking on me. Are you taking your meds? And I'm like, yes, I am.
Moral of the story, be in tune with yourself.
Yeah.
Yes.
Know
Listen to your
what
body.
you need. Listen to your body. Work through your traumas.
But going back to the video games that you mentioned, it had me thinking about this series that I have on my channel called Fears to Fathom, and that's a
Seen those.
episodic
Those are good.
horror game where people would submit real life stories that happen to them, and the game devs will create a game based on that story.
That is so fucked up.
Yeah,
I mean,
they'll submit these stories. Like the first one was this.
Do we know if that's like real or
Well,
if that's
they
just
say
what
they
they
are.
say?
They
Yeah.
say they are. And,
It's
I know
fun
the VA was definitely doing it,
yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
One of my good friends, he had terrible situation happen with him, and he
I gotta take a look.
Well, let's wrap this up because we did hit like almost an hour and a half at this
Oh, we
point.
did?
Yeah,
damn.
we're hitting an
Good-
hour
it's a
and
good
20
combo.
minutes. So
Did we get
definitely-
all
we
your
definitely
points?
yeah, we should definitely do this again though.
Yes.
I think there's always a good conversation between the four of us. So
Oh yeah.
Well, that show. How many seasons do they have?
It's just
it's just
one.
one so
now?
far.
Okay, I'll try and check it out.
Yeah,
On
check it out,
FX?
definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely check out his account as well.
Yes, NXP Play. Yeah, it would be in their description, and
Yep, we'll
you can
have
find me there.
Below our description. Follow us, like, share.
Yeah, I'll link I'll link your YouTube page, everything in our Spotify account. Because after this, I'll take it and.
Yeah, 'cause there's some
We
other
really don't
things
have
I like
do
to
that much
show you.
editing.
What's that?
So we don't really have to do much editing on this, and just kind of put
Yeah.
the theme music in, and then
Yeah.
I'll throw it on you.
Yeah, podcast casts are a little different from gaming
Yeah.
content and reactions, but if you ever want to talk about it stuff on the back end, with YouTube, just let me know,
Absolutely.
and we can sit down and go over everything.
Yeah,
You know?
we're definitely gonna need to.
Yeah.
But thank
Because our Spotify is gaining
Yeah.
a lot of popularity.
Yeah, you will grow a lot
Yes.
faster, bless you, on Spotify than you will on YouTube, in my opinion, with podcasts.
Yeah.
But YouTube now has their own version of that,
Mhm.
and they're trying to compete with podcast with Spotify.
Mm.
So
Well, I know
we'll
I'm
talk
gonna
about that as
do.
well.
I put something on our Facebook. I think I made a TikTok about it. I made a bunch of different logos for the podcast.
I'm
Because I want to do. We're eventually going to branch into Apple Music, which is what I'm trying to do right now, or Apple Podcast, and kind of set up kind of like we do with Spotify. Got to pick a picture and all this
Yeah.
stuff. But did you want to talk about doing logos and things on here?
We did that. I don't know where you were at.
Yeah, it's like the very beginning.
That was the
Just talking
first
about-
point.
Yeah.
But thank you both. Thank you both for being
Sure. Yeah.
part.
Man, thanks for inviting
yeah,
We really
appreciate it.
appreciate it.
for some reason.
This has been Shakedown First Responder Podcast.
I'm Mike.
I'm Kirsten. Stay safe.
Stay creepy.